taboo.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Revenue Hacks. I am your host, Calvin Tilokee. Once again, you will notice I am not Khristina. Khristina is unable to join us today. She's a bit under the weather, so our fearless queen is behind the scenes. So I'm taking over. Hope you all are not too disappointed. But we did bring a fabulous panel here for you today. We will start on my left with, as always, our fiery redhead.
Hello, hi Calvin, hi everybody. So happy to be back here. My name is Sheila Cantarella. I've been in revenue management for 16 years now, most of my time in chains, and now working for independents. I'm founder of Revenue Acrobats.
All right, then we'll move right. No, this way.
That might be me. So I'm Aoife Roche, and I'm commercial director on the hotel side for STR. I've been with STR for just over 4 years, and I look after all things around sales, existing clients, but previously I worked in the hotel industry in sales and marketing. So lots of contact with revenue in my previous role, and obviously servicing the industry right now in my current role. Nice to meet you all.
All right, and then we'll take it down to the bottom of the screen.
Which one? Okay. Hi, I'm Sheila Krishnan from SK Consultancy. We offer revenue management and commercial consulting for hotels in the UK and Europe. Hello, everyone.
And last but not least.
Yes, so my name is Thibault Catala. I'm the founder and managing director of Catala Consulting. We do mostly all sorts of management for independent and small size hotels in across Europe. And yeah, happy to be back on another episode of Revenue Hacks with the crew.
All right, and I apologize, I forgot to introduce myself. I always make this assumption that people know who I am since I do this show every week. But I'm Calvin Tilokee, the CEO of Revpar Media. Some of you may know me as Revpar on Instagram, and I have since, after my hotel career, moved into social media management for the hospitality space, helping companies digitally tell their story on social media. And today we are discussing silos in hotels, learning how to work as a team and do your hotel's work as a team, and the best ways and stories about how that's impacted us in our experience. So as always, please let us know in the comments any questions, any comments about anything that we say. But we'll kick it off because this is a pretty hot topic for most of us. I know, and it's a shame Kristina's not here. This is one of her favorite things to talk about. So we're going to jump right into it. We'll start with you, Silvia. What does that mean to you? What does working in a silo? How does that translate to you?
The question is, why do we have to work in a silos if we work for a hotel? By definition, we work for the hotel, so we shouldn't be working in singular departmental silos, following different goals and objectives, because this is not bringing any positive return to our income and profit. So I've been working, as I said, in hotels and revenue for more than 16 years. And also when I used to work in chains, and we were all divided into departments. So we had like revenue department, sales department, digital and whatsoever. We tended at the beginning to work a lot in silos, meaning every department had its own goals, which did not necessarily meet with the goals of the department next door. Mm-hmm. So taking the most common example, salespeople needed to generate leads and sell, so generate room nights, while revenue people had to generate Revpar. So if you think about volumes on one side and Revpar on the other side, these were two different goals which didn't necessarily meet. And that created a silos way of working, which was not efficient at all. So over the years, I saw this started to change, and this is changing. And I think that the pandemic is changing this even more, shifting our focus from the singular departmental goals to one common goal, which in my view should be profit. If all together we work towards the same goal, then we can work together as a team and move towards the same direction.
I couldn't agree more with what Silvia says, because this has been the challenge, because very often, as an example, sales manager target could be, oh, bring in this number of corporate account, bring in this number of groups, and then revenue manager, okay, your job is to drive Revpar, your job is to drive the market share. So the goals are never aligned. So everyone is working on their own strategy. And as Silvia quite rightly said, it's about profitability. And also, I think we need to include total revenue, total Revpar. It has to be the responsibility of everyone, not just the revenue manager, not just the general manager. But the question is, how do we bring them together? How do we align the goal? Where does it start? Does it start from the CEO or from the general manager? Because it is a cultural issue here. This is what the problem is.
That was going to be my next point, actually. Every time I ask, because for me, I believe like, okay, revenue management, for example, it's the end of the revenue manager gig, just crunching numbers behind the desk and just not talking to anyone and just like doing the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A good revenue manager should be on the ground, talking to reservation, to sales, and bringing the revenue culture back. And if you want to summarize why we should be working not in silo but all together, I love this definition, which is like culture eats strategy for breakfast. Meaning like you can have the best strategy, all strong, the best thing ever, but the efficacy will be held back by members of the team. And the execution of the strategy will be the main people in operation will be delivering. So if you don't have the right culture, you can have the best strategy, the best revenue manager, it's kind of worthless. But we all need to work together. And yeah, culture is strategy for breakfast. That's what I need to remind.
Yeah, and I just think to add to that, sorry, Silvia, I was just going to add to that on, I think we were talking about every department having their own goals and knowing what they had to achieve. But if there is no vision coming from the top, each department obviously has their own vision, be it Revpar or room volume or whatever that might be. But if you've got no vision that everyone collectively understands and works towards, then you'll always have silos. They will never come together and collaborate. It's easy to work in silos, right? You can just work on your little projects. Mm-hmm. You can be reactive every day to what is expected of you. Check guests in, check guests out. But, you never want to then attack the bigger projects, the real issues at hand and the real strategic piece. So I think, having a vision and letting them that drop down into the department is really key.
Absolutely. So how do you guys, what suggestions would you have to kind of break through that?
My suggestion would be, as it touches everything that you all said, actually, how do we engage with the people that are part of the different teams? And one of the key, most important characteristics that we need to develop and have is communication skills. If we don't communicate and if we don't share, using the right terminology, explaining so that, sometimes also from a revenue management standpoint, we used to use a lot of big words and KPIs and terms that only us understand. So when we communicate, let's try to explain what we do. So every department, being it the front office, the restaurant, or whatever it's involved, can understand what we say and can feel engaged and part of the same objective.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I mean, sharing of information, that's another crucial thing, because sales cannot be holding on to just their data, revenue cannot be holding on to your data, and then marketing, also food and beverage in this instance, because every department relates to one another. Every department's action has a domino effect into another department. As much as marketing raises awareness in terms of the brands, but how does it impact the revenue? And then from a revenue perspective, how does the pricing reflect on the branding? So I think there needs to be more open communication, as much as they have shared vision from the management. How do you then break it down to individual objectives and then define your strategy? But equally, like you said, have a communication, open communication and transparency. And in terms of this communication piece, who should be taking in charge? So this is where someone needs to, take how do I say, take hold of the leash. And this, I would say, comes from the general manager. The general manager need to lead the reins, or am I defining correctly? I'm trying to say, like, the horses and pull the reins and making sure
I wouldn't put a horse on a leash. I wouldn't suggest it.
Oh, okay. Maybe the reins. But you get what I meant.
I got you. I'm just kidding.
But bringing them together, so, and then driving as a singular unit, as opposed to multiple units, merging together and singular unit. So this is where I think it's very crucial. So having a purpose and sharing the information together, not withholding information. So also at the same time, creating a healthy competitiveness, it's no longer unhealthy.
I think like in terms of communication, for us revenue managers, the best opportunity is the review meeting. And you mentioned about moving from room revenue to total revenue. We need to involve as many people as we can to the meeting, even if it's intern, even if it's kitchen staff. I don't know. The more people, the better, because revenue it's at all levels of the organization. But review meeting can be one to actually bring this kind of culture into place and remove the silos. And as well for us, the daily report. Include as many people into the distribution list, your commands, what's going on, what are the targets, and so on. I believe like it's not because they are one rank below in the staff or whatever hierarchy you have in the hotel that they shouldn't be aware of the targets or what are the current situation. I think everyone should be aware. And as you mentioned, transparency is key in this kind of removing the silos.
No, absolutely. I know that's something that we touched on in the pre-show. I was given an example that I've worked at maybe 9 or 10 different hotels, and I can be certain to tell you not one front office manager has ever showed up to a revenue meeting despite being invited, right? But then what'll happen is you send out the forecast or different information, and there's a complaint or there's a lack of understanding of why are we overselling, why are the rates here or what it is. And it's like, well, this information is there, and it's been put out there. It's available. One suggestion I have, something that I've implemented in my past, is my team would send out a daily snapshot to the front office team. Just a quick breakdown of this is the goal for the day, right? This is what our forecast was. This is what we need to do to reach today's forecast. This is how many rooms we'd like to sell, the rate we'd like to sell. You have a window. This is our wish rate, but if we're taking walks from other hotels, this is the rate you can offer. I think that goes a long way. I mean, obviously, we know a lot of times front office is busy, especially these days, maybe even be understaffed. They may not be able to attend. So, try to step out of that and offer a different solution and be able to, kind of disseminate that information throughout the team. But, Thibault is 100% right. Everybody should be showing up to this meeting as much as possible, or at least getting that information to every department, because what we do in revenue impacts everyone. The restaurant needs to know, because they need to know what the occupancy is and how many people to expect. So let's see. Let's. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to add to that, because I was thinking of the sales cycle prior to this call. Thinking about in my organization at STR, how we operate our sales cycle. We get new business, we retain our existing business, and we grow our existing business, right? But for a hotel, it's the same but different, because there are so many people that can impact that sale. So, you've got revenue, you've got distribution, you've got marketing and sales to get that business in. And then the business arrives, and everybody has to retain that business, not just the salesperson, the front office person, the maintenance team, the kitchen staff. Everyone has to retain that business and ultimately grow it. So it's full on, right? Every moment counts. It's so different to selling a product or a subscription in my case. It's very, very different. So it'd be interesting to hear from the audience, how they feel about that, because it is quite an interesting concept, and it's something that I haven't done for 4 or 5 years, so I'm sure it's changed over time.
Not really. It's the same. No, but you're 100% right, and I was smiling when you made the comment, because this is why your people in operations, this is why your salespeople are, when the group shows up, they're hovering all around the desk, and they're very present, because they're worried that something's going to go wrong, because 90% of the time the communication isn't there, and there's no confidence that this resume meeting that has taken place, has anybody paying attention? Has everybody read the resumes? Because I've been on both sides of that. I've been in the front office, and I've been on the the executive side, the sales and revenue side, and I can tell you, this is just complete honesty. Most of the time, the resumes aren't being read. You will get questions on the day of arrival that has been gone over for the past month in these meetings. So then it sends you into a panic mode. It's going to send your salespeople into panic mode, like, oh my God, we need to do this ourselves because nobody's paying attention. So this all goes back to that communication piece.
I tell you, and also there's other reasons as well to it. It's also quite often they'll say that's not my job. So it's because it's not defined in their job description. It's like, that's not my job. And then when it comes to the resume meeting, so the meeting could be on a Friday. A person A attends the meeting, but then there's no handover for the person that works actually on the day. And that's why then that creates lack of trust. So having for the sales department or the sales manager having to be present themselves because they can't trust the team or the team that has been empowered to do the job that they should be doing. And so, and I think referring back to what Aoife mentioned earlier, the vision is not how is the vision embedded in each team member? Because you could, as Thibault also mentioned, you could have the best strategy, the best communication laid out there, but then it's still not actually, how do I say, dispensed correctly because the vision is not correctly embedded into these team members. So is it from the day one when they start their job, training is a big thing that we need to look into, feeding the team mission, the culture, how do we feed this into the team so we all act as one unit and not separate unit?
I think we have
go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think we have a responsibility that is to educate the people. It's not just about communicating, it's about educating them. So when you said the example, like Calvin, that you invited the front office manager to your sales meetings or daily meetings and they never showed up, did you ever ask why did they never show up? Maybe because they couldn't understand 100% of what you said, because when you have an executive meeting, you talk and you go into some details, but maybe not all these details are relevant to the front office or to the restaurant team or to the sales team. So one suggestion that I would give, and I've seen doing effectively, is just to break down the information and to adapt them to everything. So at least we have a first phase of education where can they acquire all the necessary information in order to move on and then follow our same vision and strategy.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think it's something that, excuse me, that came up a bit earlier. Is a lot of times we can speak in a lot of jargon, ADR, Revpar, and RGI, and all of these things, and it can go over a lot of people's heads. So yeah, I do think that we have a responsibility if these people are in the room, or we need to kind of speak their language, basically, right? Kind of break it down in things that they can understand, and that's more relevant for them. With the example I gave about like a daily snapshot, how many rooms do we need to check in today? How many rooms do we need to book today to hit forecast? That's something that's a bit more relatable for them, and not this high level, this is, we're trying to hit budget or forecast or whatever. So that's a great point.
I think you also need to align the quarterly goals with the team. When you have the personal development plan, to make sure you have some goals which are linked to different departments, such as revenue, profitability, even if you're in a kitchen and so on, because it will force them to get the data because they need to deliver on the objective based on different departments. And then the second point, and I believe that's a bit different on my approach to revenue management to some others, but I like to make the revenue meeting like kind of a show, like very fun and exciting for everyone. So at first you get like 1-2 person, and then they start saying, oh, that's actually quite fun. I like to participate in those kind of thing, and Thibault is actually quite funny. And then you have more people to show up and so on. And at the end you have like quite a bunch of people just showing up just for the show of the revenue meeting, and then involve them in the participation to present some of their department, some of their data. It's not only the revenue manager to show all the data and people just to lay back and look. You need to have some kind of involvement, some question and answer. So yeah, make it fun and exciting for everyone. And I think like you will bring the culture and you remove the silos.
Now we all want to come to your revenue meetings.
Oh yes, I have like a red nose and like a funny thing. It's very cool.
I agree. I agree with Thibault actually. My previous role was a commercial director role, and I encourage to have like a commercial meeting where we look at short-term, long-term objective, and then let the team to come up with the actions, what are the results that they are driving towards the action. So it's kind of like giving an empowerment, and that also covers the communication part. But here's the question: so do you think a commercial role is important in a hotel, like a commercial director role, which brings the element of sales, revenue, marketing together? Or do you think these individuals, a revenue manager, sales manager, or directors, they can be just an individual role? They do not need a commercial director. What are your thoughts? I'm curious to hear, because someone asked me this question. And my personal answer, I'm giving the answer already, but I would like to hear your thoughts. But my personal thought, it's a position. It's there to bring this multiple department together. But ultimately, I do think each of these individual entities or roles need to be commercially astute to understand the bigger picture and relate to them. So what are your thoughts on this? Because probably this might be a solution to silo workings. Who knows?
I mean, my off the top answer would be, isn't that what the GM is for? You know what I mean? Like that's the role of the general manager is to bring everything together. But I think the overriding problem is, what we touched on earlier. It's the culture, and it's up to the general manager to create that culture. While I agree with Silvia that we need to, educate and disseminate this information in a certain way, there needs to be an attitude of care on the other side, right? And a lot of times in my experiences, these other departments just didn't care. They just cared about what they needed to do. The answer you'd get most of the time from operations is, "Oh, I'm too busy. We have this many check-ins. I don't have time to come to a meeting." That tells me you have no vision about your job, about the operation, about how this actually impacts. How this meeting on Tuesday is going to impact your Saturday, right? Knowing this information is going to help you on the weekend when we get busy, and being able to pass this information along to your staff. But they don't see it that way. They see it as a chore, another meeting, because I'm worried about right here, right now. And that has to be, that's a culture thing.
So culture. Yeah, culture is a huge thing. But yeah, it's again, it all starting from the vision and the mission, then cascading down to the goals and objectives, and then breaking down to the individual departments. Calvin, I think you want to look at some of these great questions out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we got on a roll there. So let's bring in a few from the audience. Let's pop up the one from Clara. This one, talking about your comment, Sheila, about quote unquote, "That's not my job." What is the solution though? Because there's the vision of the hotel, but there's also at the same time each targets that each department has to work towards.
And I mean, my thought process to this again, so you have the main goals, the three main goals each department has to carry out. And that would be, total profitability, total Revpar, and then it could be EBITDA. And then you break it down to individual departments in terms of the goals. And that could be the departmental target, driving the marketing brand awareness, looking at reviews, percentage of guest reviews, how do we manage them? Or from a revenue perspective, the individual target could be looking at your market share, looking at your ADR growth, in addition to the main goal line. Now, how do we bring the teams together and to say that's not my job? I was considering about, where Thibault mentioned just now, kind of giving a cross exposure. So invite them to your revenue meeting, have cross-pollination, have cross exposure in the as an action plan in their PDP. So that would be an opportunity for each team members to get exposure to other departments, learn about the other departments. So when they are doing their own role, they actually know, okay, if there's a question arises in relation to sales, they know they are able to answer. Because quite often they come up with the answer, "It's not my job," because they actually do not know the job. That is the reason. Sorry, that was kind of like a lot of babbling out there, but I hope I made my point.
It makes sense. And I think like as well, not only telling them what to do and what it is, but let the solution come from them. Because if they're involved into the solution or if they're involved into the targets, there will be more excited and to go for it. But if it comes from them, it's better than if it comes from the manager, from the first one.
Yeah.
I think coming maybe just to add on to that, I think, you know, with compensation in whatever form that takes, you know, if you're compensating your sales team and your revenue team to generate X, be it in ADR or Revpar, you know, think about the compensation right down to the end. Everyone has to be part of that sales cycle, because you will never get the results you want, and you'll have everyone continuing to work in silos. I think if you don't have that overall share of success for every single team member.
And that's where also technology comes in, right? Technology, you know, there's lots of systems out there to provide data, revenue data, sales data, marketing data. You know, I understand, you know, 20 years ago, maybe there's not much technology, there's not much data. So it's understandable that those days the department was just working in silos because they had specific tasks. You know, revenue was mainly yielding and changing pricing. Marketing was kind of looking at, you know, advertising and publications. Sales is just selling. But now there's so much information out there, and it's coming together, making use of this information. You know, revenue going, guys, I need some exposure in XYZ market. How can we achieve that together? Let's implement an action. And let's look at the ROI. And then similarly working with sales, you know, okay, this is the segment that is lacking in terms of revenue. How can we drive more business? So I think it's working more collaboratively. And I think that point was raised just now in one of the comments, and I can't remember who, but I think that is also a key exchange of information. So as much as, you know, okay, sharing data and information, but, you know, pulling out all of this data, analyzing together, and then planning together a workable action point so they are achieving the same goal as opposed to working individually.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here because we're getting some really interesting comments, and there was my thought on this particular question. This is the no nonsense revenue show, right? If you're saying that's not my job, this business isn't for you. Okay, that's not hospitality. That's the first thing I learned in hospitality school. There's no such thing as that's not my job. Find something else to do. And I'm going to
nice.
Yeah, sorry. You know, this the no nonsense show. I mean, let's be real. There's no room for that. All right. This, you know, hospitality is probably the most collaborative business. Everything every department does is reliant on somebody else in some way, shape, or form. We're here to serve the guests and each other in order to execute a goal. So if that crosses your mind, if you have those kind of people, you may want to look at making some changes. And we have some comments coming in here. One from Andrew. Is the Tuesday meeting at the right time then? Breaking down silos has to be two-way. And also from Ewan, I love silo breaking as a concept, yet operationally, how do we avoid additional emails, meetings, reporting for team that's already stretched? Again, I'm going to give you the no-nonsense answer. These are what you call excuses. Okay. The meeting has to be set at a certain time that works for the majority of the team. If your leader, the front office, each department is responsible for sending a representative, period. We can't, you can't schedule a meeting that works for every single individual, right? A department needs to send a representative. If your director of front office is unavailable at that time, send a front office manager. And then this information needs to take the responsibility for communicating that information to your team. It's not up to me, the GM, or whoever schedules a meeting to make sure it works for every single department. You know, each individual department needs to take responsibility for wanting the information, understanding how it impacts you and your department and your role, and making sure that your team is educated. But I'll let you guys jump in on that.
I'm going to defend a bit Ewan on this one because I understand, like, if you remove completely the silo, you may have a lot of endless meetings and back-to-back meetings, and that's what we want to avoid to make sure it's efficient. The organization is efficient. I was reading a book like a few years ago, which was The Effective Executive from Peter Drucker. It's actually quite a good one. I highly recommend it. And he was saying, like, it's fine if people don't attend the meeting, but it's our responsibility to share the minutes with everyone, to make sure they catch up. And that's their responsibility to catch up on the minutes and to see what happened during the meetings. So it's not necessary to have back-to-back meetings, but it's our responsibility to share the information and making sure as many people as possible in the organization get this information and what we talked and what we discussed in those meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably add, Calvin, just on the delegation of that task, right, of attending that Tuesday meeting or sending the representative, as he said. I think, it's easy again for a leader to take their next in line or their SMEs, their subject matter experts, and send them to that meeting. But it takes courage to bring that down one level or to assign it to someone else, because if you don't have that trust, you will never, ever do that. So as a leader, like using your trust skill and being able to encourage people to attend those meetings, to learn from them as well, to develop them, to give an opportunity to air their opinions. And like I find in my role, every single team member has a voice. And the more I bring to the table, the faster we move, the better decisions we make, that we move forward. There's no point in me, answering all the questions. I don't have all the answers. So the more people we can involve, and not everyone can come to that meeting, but if you choose wisely, you'll grow that team as well at the same time.
Of course. And, again, it comes back to communication and collaboration. If you're not doing that within your own silo, how can you do it outside of it? That's not the responsibility of another department to make sure you and your team are communicating properly. And that's where a lot of the frustration comes from, because you have these endless meetings and emails and they seem to go nowhere. Again, speaking from the revenue sales side, you'll do a revenue meeting, you'll do a resume meeting and talk about these things until you're blue in the face. And then the day comes and people are telling you, oh, we didn't know about that. And look at you as if you haven't been talking about this ad nauseum for 5 weeks. That you have to take responsibility for your own department, your own space, and making sure that your team can execute. Nobody else can do that for you.
I couldn't agree more with Aoife, also because I think really that the more people we are able to involve and make part of this kind of communication, then the more creativity grows, because sometimes the better ideas come from people that are unexpected, that maybe can see opportunities for the business with fresh new eyes, or something that maybe we have in front of us each day, but we cannot see, and they can see because they are not so involved. So there's only room for improvement. And I've seen so many contamination of ideas coming from different departments over time, which is amazing.
All right. So we got these comments are flying in today.
Yeah.
So from Julie, the easiest way to break down silos is to ensure the business reports the impact each function has on the business. So leads delivered, leads converted, etc. And repeat business and why impact on reviews of each department so that everyone understands where and how they fit, which is a great point. I think it goes back to what we are saying. Understanding what your role in the whole operation is will give you the incentive to want the information, because you understand how this is going to impact you individually. And at the end of the day, we're all worried about how our individual performance is reflective. But yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Agree. I mean, and also it's measuring where you are at in terms of your targets or your goals. If you do not know where you are or how far are you in terms of your targets, how do you know what you need to do? And that's another important thing. It's all well and good that reading data, reading the information, sharing information, but it's not knowing where you are at as well. Then that's not going to take you anywhere. It's like, knowing your direction. Which direction are you going? How far are you from the direction? And this is where, it comes back to the sharing information, the communication piece, what we're doing. Is it bringing a return? Is it a beneficial action, or is it not? Are we wasting our time doing something that is not beneficial? So, and again, all the meetings should have a purpose. We could have tons of meetings in hotels, but it's being wise about it. Is that meeting necessary? Do we need that meeting? And leaders of the business need to decide what is important. You have a monthly meeting, you could have a balanced scorecard meeting. So have a defined, purposeful meetings. Let's not waste too much time in just meeting after meeting. Then who's going to be doing the actual job?
And something as well I fully agree with what you mentioned as well with Julie. to have the data tracked correctly, but as well responsible next to each KPI and each data. So I was Googling it because I don't remember the name, but it's called the bystander effect. And I can redo the definition. It's a theory that states that individuals are less likely to offer help to a victim when there are other people present. So meaning like if you see a KPI or anything, you will think, okay, that's not my responsibility, someone else will take care of it. That's kind of a psychological thing. But if you see your name next to this KPI, you will start to care a bit more because you see your name next to it. So it's very important to have KPI and as well key responsible person to have like owners, exactly, to make sure everyone is involved and can be tracked to responsibilities and individuals.
Yeah, it's great. That's actually, I think there was a comment from Giannis a few minutes ago, which I think ties into your point there, Thibault. How would you convince entry-level staff or department with different objectives than revenue, for example, guest relation department, to be involved in the global revenue performances of the property? I'll really quickly touch on it. I think everybody is part of the goal. We all have the same goal, right? Yes, we break it down. Okay, revenue has to look at Revpar and all the things we look at, budget and forecast, and front desk is more focused on guest service and scores. But that's all together, and this is something that I think a lot of us struggle with getting through to the different departments. Is the better you do on guest service, the more money I can charge. Right. And the faster and better we get to our goal. And that's where I think that, again, it comes back to that culture. Are we communicating? Are people really sitting down and paying attention in these meetings, emails, conversations, whatever it is, and understanding that what you do impacts what I do, in fact, and vice versa. To break it down on the operations side, right? Think about front desk, housekeeping, and engineering. Just that department alone, just think about it that way, and that expands across the whole thing. If housekeeping isn't flipping the rooms fast enough for you, it impacts your ability to check people in, which is going to impact your guest scores because guests are going to be upset.
I think we've been training. Go ahead, Silvia.
No,
go.
No,
I was just going to say, have we been training the right people in customer service, right, within hotels? You're always going to train the client-facing, the front-facing staff, but what about everyone else in the hotel? Have they been trained in customer experience? That's a question.
Yeah, what I wanted to say also, let's take the opportunity when we have these meetings, okay, to look at the KPIs and everything, but also to celebrate success, to get engagement again from the people, because let's not forget that it's also an opportunity to celebrate our achievements and get greater buy-in from all the different departments. Sometimes we forget, but it's important.
Yeah, and we'll bring up the comment from Clara, because I think it brings us into another part of the issue. I do feel that sometimes heads of departments are always on their feet, short-staffed, and barely have time to focus on the strategy and targets, let alone how to make it work with other departments. What do you guys think there? That's a loaded one.
I think Calvin will jump on it, saying like it's an excuse. He was going to headbutt you. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it could be an excuse because that's the responsibility of the manager to focus on the strategy and the targets. So they have to take care of making sure it's efficient and it is being distributed by the right department and communicated. I don't know what you feel the same, Calvin, but I think it's also part of the responsibility and this kind of thing could be an excuse.
But
No,
also,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
The question is, why are they short staffed? Why is there a huge staff turnover, and why is there a huge staff turnover? Is it lack of training? Because remember, people work for people. So if there is no culture, if they are not happy working and they are moving on. So, and this is one of the reasons why quite often we are short-handed with staff. So how do we retain staff? And again, Silvia mentioned a point there, celebrate successes, celebrate their achievements, but also training and development plays a huge part in this. We want to train people good enough so they can leave, but at the same time, I can't remember, is it Richard Branson? I can't remember his full quote, but train them well enough so they do not want to leave. And that then mitigates the problem of being short-staffed and then being able to devote more time to the strategy and targets, and also as a whole, develop the team to be able to, enhance their career progression. Anyone agrees with me? Yeah.
No, I do agree, and that's why I agree with both of you. I think short staffed or not, we have a job to do, right? And it's as a department head, as a leader, it's your responsibility to constantly be focused on the goal, regardless of what the situation is. We've all been in situations, we've all been in instances where you don't have enough people or something else may be going on. There's just no way to avoid these things. But Sheila, to your point, I think I'd even go a step further. Are we hiring the right people? Going back to the comment before about that's not my job. That's not the right person. Now, there's also a reason a lot of times we hire these people because we are short staffed. Let's just get a body in there. We need somebody to fill in, and this it's a vicious cycle. And this goes into the larger conversation about the hiring crisis that we're seeing, because it's there's a lot in there. That's an episode all on its own about how we found ourselves in this situation and how we get ourselves out of that. But it is twofold, but I agree with both of you. The leader needs to always be focused on that goal regardless of the situation, but how do we make sure people want to continue to work, and why are we always short staffed is a bigger question.
Great.
And Andrew has a comment for you. Look at where the industry is in UK with staffing levels.
That's true, but that's again, right? It's going to open another whole can of worms, because hiring itself a topic by itself. Are we hiring the right people? Are we paying well enough as well? That's another question. Being in hospitality, the salary hasn't changed for the last 2 decades. A receptionist earning the same amount of money that they were earning 20 years ago. So it's a whole topic by itself. But I think, if we were to focus in terms of the existing department, how can we break silo workings? And I think that comes with culture, communication, collaboration, adapting all the best practices of bringing people together towards one common goal. I think that's the key to it. But then staffing levels, I think, that's a whole other topic which we need to bring it on revenue.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said that one was a bit loaded, because it brings up a much larger point, which again, I think we can get into another time. But our esteemed, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, it's true, the UK staffing level is an issue, and that's something which I see even a bigger crisis than anything else that we have seen before. However, if we want it or not, the silos are going to be break down, because we are going to ask, because of staffing issues, some people to multitask. And indirectly, you will see some people doing front office and as well as the restaurant, or doing concierge and so on. So the silos are going to be removed anyways because of this current situation. So it's very important to be proactive and remove the silos before the silos remove themselves, I believe.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think there's a lot of hybrid roles now, and I think that will continue because of cost savings, at the top. But that could be a good thing from that standpoint, because you've got a person doing 2 completely different roles at the same time. So, of course, there's no silo. It's the same person, right? But now I think the challenge is, let's find the right people for those roles and pay them appropriately, so they don't want to jump to another industry.
Great.
And we've got a comment here from our producer. She's multitasking back there. Very often, open communication and a lot of random information flying around is hardly filtered and associated with doing too many things outside of the job role. Without right directions from the top, people get overwhelmed. Aoife, we haven't heard from you in a while. Jump in there.
I'm reading over that again. Sometimes it's over communication, right? There's too much information flying around, and that is because leadership hasn't made the decisions, and disseminated the information in the right way. That's often the case. So I think, having a strong leadership team that can hide all the noise from the team and then communicate it when the time is right. And we work in a very volatile industry right now. We've gone through 18 months of pain, I think it can only be described as, and you've had to adapt, right? Your budget was one thing one day, and then the next day completely changed. I mean, we experienced it in writing our forecasts. We would publish our quarterly forecast, and the next day another announcement would change everything. So, you have to be able to adapt, and the team beneath you needs to understand that there is a lot of noise and they have to accept that. But ultimately, it is up to the leadership to make sure that communication is as clear as it can be, and that the team are on board to kind of go on that journey, to success. And again, it comes back to that vision. We have a vision. Your vision doesn't usually falter too much. Even if you have bumps on the road, you have a vision. It's not going to change. It may take longer to get there than you planned. So if everyone's working, and it may take slower, that line growth, that growth up to the vision may take more time. But if everyone gets it, you will get there.
I think that's a great way to wrap up. I think that pretty much summarizes what we've been talking about today. Ultimately, this is going to come down from the top. If you have the right leadership and the right culture in place, you won't have silos. And if you do, then it's something that needs to be worked on. I think each department head can continue to try to break those down, but ultimately it's up to the leadership and getting it down to the right people and helping everybody understand what their role is in the overall picture. Anybody final thoughts before we close it up?
I think we've covered some great points today, and we hope our audiences have captured them and start implementing and in real life, really.
It's hashtag break the silos. Yeah.
Break the silos, yes.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that the hotel industry has just been phenomenal over the last year and a half. It's unbelievable to watch how they've come out of this and gone back into it and come out of it again. So, we just hope, especially at STR, that everything is just going to go smoothly now, and business will ramp back up. And we wish you all the best, for sure.
Okay.
Sylvia, anything?
My last thought is, let's just think that the hotel is our house. So we need to treat the hotel the way we treat our house. We don't want to have a war between us. We need to collaborate and work together in order to make it work. So that's my final thought.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Hearts and hashtags today. All right. This was a great conversation. Thank you all for your comments in the audience, and to the illustrious panel for everybody's great insight today. Please be sure to join us next week as we are talking about hotel segmentation versus distribution channels. Do we still need to price based on segmentation? Yes. So catch us next week. Our fearless queen, Khristina, will be back. And please be sure to check out the replay. You can still send in comments. We'll respond throughout the day. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.